Welcome to the One Gang Worldwide podcast, your ultimate ride into the world of motorcycles. Visit cyclesworldwide.com where we offer a completely free marketplace for everything motorcycles. Join our One Gang community where you can connect, share info, and swap stories with riders from all over the world. Join for free at cyclesworldwide.com and be a part of the One Gang community right now.
Get ready for a high-octane ride through the mind of one of the UK's most innovative motorcycle engineers. In this episode of One Gang Worldwide, we sit down with Tony Scott, the visionary behind Tony Scott Motorsport and the groundbreaking Moto Evo Platform. We explore his early days tinkering with bikes to becoming a performance icon trusted by racers across the globe. We follow his journey through the triumphs, the challenges, and the passion that powers every custom build and tuned engine that leaves his Kent-based workshop.
And I woke up one day and I went, I'm going to build a Moto 2 bike. Why? Because I can. Yeah, but why? I don't know why. Just because I can.
Yes.
What's up, One Gang? We got a great show for you here today. We have Tony Scott from Tony Scott Motorsports in the UK. Tony, thanks so much for joining us, man. Welcome aboard.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Tony, thanks for joining us. Let's start at the beginning. Where'd you grow up and what kind of kid were you? Were you always fascinated by machines or motorsports?
I was a fat kid, so I didn't really get too much into motorsport, but not much changed as an adult, actually, I don't think. I'm an Essex boy, in truth.
Essex. Cool.
Yeah, pure Essex boy, but born in Ilford in Essex in King George's Hospital at some obscure time in the morning. And I don't know what was happening, where the stars aligned or what it was, but it's been a really interesting journey since then, for sure.
Nice. You grew up, were you a hands-on kid? I mean, as far as like, were you messing around with stuff, tinkering? Is that how you kind of got this
Bug?
If you mean, did I take the cat apart?
You could, firecrackers with the cat, but I mean, as far as taking apart like your toys, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was, academically, I was never into the stuff we're all supposed to be into. But when I got to the woodwork classes or the engineering classes, then that's the bit I really enjoyed. Clearly, I wasn't particularly academic, but I was creative. And, as I've gone on in life, I've often questioned whether, I'm a little somewhere on that spectrum that we hear so much about today, because my thought processes tend to deviate from the norm. But do you know what? It's like people say, I don't see it as an issue. I see it as an agility almost. I like sitting down. I'm an overthinker, and I sit down and I think and I think and I think, and I will keep thinking till I find a solution. That's just the way my brain works.
That's awesome, man. Hey, was there a particular moment or maybe something that kind of sparked your obsession with that motorcycle world?
Yeah, do you know what? That's a really good question. And if you'd asked me 30 years ago, I could probably remember what that was. But I know I can remember as a kid, my mother, in my mother's bedroom, at the end of the bed, if you sat there, she used to have one of these like makeup cabinet things, with the big mirror and the lights and stuff. I used to sit on the end.
Ben still has that.
Does he?
When he does his makeup before the shows.
Right.
It's when you put so much mascara on, Ben, that you got to flip your head back to open your eyes. Then you've gone too far.
He's the beauty of the show, so we have to have him looking good.
Cool. So yeah, I used to sit on the end of the bed with a crash helmet on to see what I would look like riding a motorbike. I mean, it was kind of, I look back on it now and go, what was happening there? But then, the odd thing, I guess one of the odd things about me is, I mean, I'll be 65 this year, and I have an 8-year-old son. So I can still see that boy. I mean, the poor bugger looks a lot like me, sounds a lot like me, and I'm feeling
he's gonna be a handsome kid then.
I'm feeling for him already. But But yeah, I realize it wasn't so dumb now, when I see the things that he does and whatnot. But yeah, I just an ordinary kid growing up in the 70s, playing with hoops and running around and out till it was dark, and you knew what the rules were, but you had all that freedom. When I was a kid, we used to catch the bus home, one of those very British buses that have a doorway at the end that's open, and it's got a pole in it in the middle of it. And so instead of having to go all the way to the next bus stop, I used to hang off of that thing and jump off at the little mini roundabout, which was close to my road.
That's funny.
Sometimes I made it and sometimes I didn't. But it was a joyful time. It was a great time to be a kid. I think it's much harder nowadays, but back then we just used to go out and play.
Yeah, no question. How did your interest for motorcycles begin at a young age? Can you do you remember that part?
No,
Like, how did you become into this?
I guess I think it was an old friend of mine, a guy called Peter Norman, who bought a motorcycle when he was still at school, a Fantic to be precise. And he rolled up on this thing one day, and I just went, "That is so cool." I mean, how cool does that guy look?
Right.
And you know what it's like at school with all the peer pressure around. We all want to be the coolest guy on the block.
Right.
And he certainly was. And I think I don't think it was about motorcycles. It was just about how cool they made you look at the time. And I think pretty much it picks up from there. And I started looking at motorcycles in a way. It's kind of like when you hit 16, you start looking at girls in a slightly different way to what you used to when you were younger. The same thing kind of happened to me with motorcycles, really. I started looking at them, seeing them, and then just seeing the whole deliciousness in what they were and what they did and how they made you look. And the more you delved into it, you realized it just wasn't about the look. It was just so much more than that.
Absolutely. Can you take us back to maybe your first ride that kind of changed everything once you actually physically got on one?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of dropped into motorcycles just as the British motorcycle industry was falling apart, and the Japanese were coming over with the FS1Es and the Suzuki AP50s. When I was a kid, the 750 Suzuki water bottles were about X7s, all sorts of stuff. And I tried to persuade my father to buy me a motorcycle. I should say my stepfather, actually. He wasn't having any of it. So I got myself a part-time job putting the jam in donuts at one of the local supermarkets not far from where I live.
Putting the jam into the donuts, huh?
That was my first. I'll tell you what. How many people know how you get jam in a donut?
Yeah.
Not so many. You know, it's something I keep for dinner parties. And my first ride on a motorcycle was on the back of a motorcycle. A young lad called Nonny Danner got on the back of a 750 Honda. Absolutely terrified. Terrified. We were in the wet. I was kind of asking myself, what is this guy doing? Why is he leaning the motorbike over when the road is wet? Are you crazy?
Man,
Yeah.
But yeah, it was that bug. Once that feeling of speed and freedom and isolation to a certain degree, not when you get off it, but when you're on it, it's that little world. You're inside that helmet and it's all yours. And being, I mean, I won't call myself an introvert, not at all, but I like my own space and I'm comfortable with my own company. So, yeah, motorbikes just them and I just gelled.
What's up, One Gang? I used to think that if I spent big money on riding gear with a logo on the back, I was getting top quality. I gave Leather Up a shot. I wasn't sure at first, could I really get quality gear without spending a fortune? But after putting tens of thousands of miles on their jackets and vests, I had my answer. No busted zippers, no loose stitching, just solid, well-made gear that lasts. Leather Up carries trusted brands like Milwaukee Leather, Hot Leathers, and more, with gear for every rider and every budget. Plus, their customer service actually cares and picks up the phone, something rare these days. So do yourself a favor, check out leatherup.com. Whether you need jackets, vests, chaps, boots, helmets, or luggage, they've got you covered. And because you're part of the One Gang Worldwide family, use code CW20 at checkout for 20% off your entire order. Stop overpaying, gear up with Leather Up, and see the difference yourself.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So before you launched Tony Scott Motorsport, what did your early career in engineering or racing look like?
My early, you know, I bought my first bike when I was 16. I went on to own some other, what are now rare bikes, you know, but we never know that until we're much older, when we go, oh, I wish I
Coulda
really
kept
hadn't
that.
sold that, you know.
Well, which ones did you have?
My first bike was, my first bigger bike was a Yamaha 250B, which they brought out the 250. Yamaha brought out the 250 with this coffin-shaped fuel tank. But just prior to that, there was like a teardrop, a pear drop shaped tank in blaze orange, and it had a 6-speed box in it, not a 5. That thing would do over the 100 mile an hour back in in like the mid 70s.
That's crazy.
Yeah, 250 2-stroke, 2-cylinder jobby. I loved that motorcycle. Loved it. Kept it for ages. Then I went through the whole thing of, well, you know, what is out there? Suzuki GSXR 750s. Only ever bought one of those because of the red clocks at night, because they looked like you were in an aeroplane on the old transatlantic flights. I loved that.
Yeah.
I loved
That's
that
cool.
motorcycle. Had a whole host of them. Ripped a bucket load of holes in my jeans sliding down the road in one way or another.
So mainly Japanese. You didn't own any
never got the
British bikes at that time?
Never got the British vibe. I mean, funny enough, at my age now, I can kind of see where it was coming from. But back then, it wasn't cool. It just wasn't cool for a teenage guy. An FS1E or the 250 or the 750, they were the cool bikes of the time. And we used to, when I was younger, there was a little local area called Cadmore Lane. It was a small car park with a small parade of shops, which included a Chinese restaurant, a takeaway restaurant. So we all used to gather out there of an evening, and some of the girls would come down from the local area and come chill with us. We'd go buy ourselves a snack in the takeaway. The favorite thing was to stick a pancake roll up someone's exhaust pipe while they weren't looking. You know, it was just stupid stuff like that.
Good time.
Yeah, they were good times, and also they were painful times, because I lost a lot of friends along the way. Some of them I lost right in front of me.
Wow.
Others, you know, you heard about the next morning, and you were too young to understand the value of life back then. You were just living. And if it ended, it ended, and hopefully you weren't going to know anything about it. But yeah, I lost a lot of buddies along the way, probably 3.
Right.
That, you know, that I was fairly close to. But you know what? That's it. That's how it lands.
Yeah.
You know, it's you can't stop doing stuff because you might die. The reality is, if we follow that theme, then we might as well not be born, because we are all gonna die. So you know, let's just get on with it. And the thrill of that, you know, I think motorcyclists in many ways live a lifetime in a saddle, and yeah, I don't think that's a gross exaggeration.
No, it's not a gross exaggeration by no means. I agree with you 100%.
So were there, in those days when you were starting to work, were there any pivotal roles or projects that helped shape your
Yeah.
moving forward?
I mean, as I grew up, I left England when I was 19, went and lived out in South Africa, served in the
Wow.
Merchant Navy out there.
Cool.
You know, I got on my first ship. Funny story was, I was sitting in my room waiting for a call because I'd been to the job interview and they said to me, "Hey, listen, this is a cool job. You only work for 4 hours and then you have 8 hours off." And you go, "Well, that's a cool job. You know, I fancy that." So when I got on board my ship, I was a junior engineering officer. So I had the braids on
Yep.
here and all that lot. And we had a sea daddy who used to take us through what the whole thing was about. And I remember saying to him, I say, "Hey, I got these gold braids here. I know that means I'm an officer, but what's the purple braid underneath it?" And he said, "Oh, that's a bravery award." And I said, "Why do I get a bravery award?" And he said, "Because you're 5 stories down, and if she breaks her back, you're never getting out." And I went, "Well, they never mentioned that at the interview." You know, that
Wondering
one
what
was
the strings were.
sidelined
That's
slightly.
funny,
You know?
man.
But and the other funny one was here in the UK, we used to have a national newspaper called The Sun. And the favorite part of The Sun was page 3, where they used to feature a topless lady every day, a different one. And
No
some
kidding.
of those, yeah. I mean, you know, we're in the 70s now, and the 80s.
All
We were
right. having
having a lot of fun. And there wasn't the restrictions that we kind of
Right.
have now. And some of these women became very, very famous. Like Samantha Fox, Linda Lusardi, people
Oh,
like
Samantha
that.
Fox. I had the biggest crush on her, man. Whew.
Did you? Well, I can
Oh my
tell you,
God.
I can tell you a story about Samantha Fox, because many years later, and one of the things that kicked off my whole motorcycle career was a relationship I had with a now defunct national newspaper called the News of the World. And I was real chummy with the sports editor there and the features editor there. And I used to get dragged out to some of the press launches they did and some of the stuff. And I met Samantha Fox in a snooker club when they were doing a launch on these billiard tables. And I remember going up to her and saying to her, you know, I was a bit stupid. I didn't know what to say. I was about to meet a page 3 girl. You know, what do you say?
Right.
Certainly not what you want to say. And I said to her, I said, "Hey, do you know what?" I said, I have a short story about you. And she said, "Oh yeah, what's that?" I said, "Well, when I was in the Merchant Navy, I used to have a calendar picture of you that was pinned to the wall in all 4 corners. And then on the top, right in the middle, I used to have a nail, and down from that, I used to hang a barbecue skewer, a little metal barbecue skewer. Because back in the day, they used to have a little ring at the top, and they were made from steel." I said, and I used to wake up in the morning, and I said, I used to look at that to see what the sea was going to be like outside. And if that barbecue skewer reached your nipples, I knew I was going to be sick that day.
That's funny, man.
It didn't go down too well. She looked pretty confused at the time.
I wonder why.
But yeah, but it was one of those things, you know. I mean, genuinely, I used to look at them every morning. If it got anywhere close, I knew I was gonna throw up.
That's cool.
Hey, Ben, do you know who Samantha
Yeah.
Fox is? Have you
A
ever seen her?
singer, model, yeah.
Yeah, she was a model. Yeah, she was great, man.
I think she turned out liking the girls more than the boys, which I must have
Did she?
came to a huge disappointment to my entire generation. I mean, there were guys throwing themselves off of bridges when that bit of
It
information
might have been
came
your
out.
story that made her.
That changed her perspective on men.
It possibly could have been. She went, I met
That's
this
so
good-looking
funny.
guy in a snooker club, and
That's
he just
funny,
turned
man.
out to be an ass. So, you know, I'm out of here.
That's- Hey, quick question. You built a reputation now through triumphs. What drew you specifically at that time as you were transitioning into this industry, specifically towards the Triumph world?
Well, the story goes back to I was really into photography when I was younger, and I used to go to the racetracks, and I used to try and take pictures through the wire fences of the 500 Grand Prix riders. And we're going back to, you know, we used to have a series over here in the UK called the Transatlantic Trophies. And just trying to think of some of the names of the boy. I mean, Schwantz used to be in that. Ron Haslam used to be. Freddie Merkel, that was another guy. Fred Merkel was in there. And I took this picture of Ron Haslam riding the Cagiva 500, same time as Momola was riding it, who I have to say now, and I hope, Randy, you're watching this, he is one of the coolest guys in motorsport. No question for me. He is just funny, interesting, and incredibly talented. So I blew this picture up of Ron on the Cagiva real big, and I found out where he lived, and I sent it to his house up in Derbyshire. And he must have then investigated who I was, and I got a phone call from his wife, Anne, and she said, "You know what? Really want to thank you for the picture. Really liked it. Ron has said, would you come and do some pictures of Leon Haslam when he was motocrossing?" This for me was a huge honor. I was going to get hanging around with a Grand Prix rider. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. I used to go up there, stick around. They were a crazy bunch, absolutely crazy bunch. When we were out on the dirt tracks, they used to play this game with screwdrivers where you had to stand still and they'd throw them at your feet like a knife. I can remember Gary Haslam, one of the brothers, that it all went a little bit wrong, and one of them got it right through the foot. But they were a crazy bunch. It was like, ha ha ha, that's okay. Let's move on. You think, yeah, okay. So this is all a little weird. And one day, because I did mention very early on, I was a fat kid when I was younger. So Ron and I are walking up this real hill, this big steep hill, and I thought to myself, Jesus Christ, the man's not puffing, and I'm blowing like a sail. This is mad. And I decided I was going to get fit. And when I finished getting fit, I decided I was going to go racing. And the first time I ever hit the grid was at British Superbikes.
Man.
Wow.
Which was about the dumbest thing that you could do. I mean, back then they used to have the Shell Oils Junior Challenge, so I was able to go in there on a 400 Kawasaki. And I'll always remember there was one particular team there and a flag flying on the top of their awning going, "Team No Fat Chicks." And the lady in there was fairly rotund. There's no question about that. There was some irony going on there. I don't know what it was, but at least they had a sense of humor. That was the good bit. And I went out there, did my first race. I was so buzzed up that as I was coming around, two riders pulled into pit lane, and I thought I'd missed the checkered flag. And so I followed them in, only to find out actually there was one lap left. Both of them had retired. But it didn't matter. I didn't care. I'd got this white line around my mouth from adrenaline, from pure adrenaline. Wow. And that was it. I was sunk. I was done. I'd got out on a racetrack. I'd felt what it was like. Used to go to my local roundabouts on an Aprilia RS 250, try to get my knee down. I'd just spend hours of an evening, because back then the roads weren't quite so busy. I'd spend hours just trying to get my knee down. Eventually, when I did, it was time to hit the racetrack, and I hit the racetrack, and frankly, I wasn't very good at it. I think my survival instincts kicked in. I kind of went, "Ooh, this is dangerous." But that's what started the whole thing, because I wasn't as fast as I wanted to be, and that inquisitive, overthinking mind started saying, "Why? Why aren't you?" So I started delving into, I started asking the guys around me questions. I all remember one, Carl Freeman, lovely guy, KR1S Kawasaki, he used to race with. I used to say to him, "I'm really struggling out there, fella." And he'd say to me, "You're a demon on the brakes, but you're parking it in the corner." So I said, "Well, what do I do?" He said, "You got to let that brake off a little earlier and run it in." And I said, "I'm already letting the brake off and running it in. I go in any faster, I'm going to crash."
Right.
So all that sort of advice didn't work for me. because my survival instincts kicked in, and it said, well, just going in quicker is only going to result in something bad. So how do I go in quicker was the answers that I was looking for. And then I came across one of your countrymen, forget his name now, Californian Superbike School. And I started reading his books. And there he started to break down the process, the various techniques that differentiate a road rider to a racer. And then I began to understand, and I went back out there again. And actually, I got pretty quick. But by the time I'd got to that point, I was in my sort of mid-30s. And I was never going to go anywhere in it in terms of, any kind of celebrity status. So
Right. Professional.
I just sort of, I turned my hand to teaching, because I'd spent so long studying what it was that I wasn't doing, or what it was that I was doing that I shouldn't be doing. I decided to go teaching, and I opened up a company called the European Superbike School. And my chief instructors in that school were Randy Mamola. My main chief instructor, the one who came to most of the events, was a guy called Pier Francesco Chili, who was the darling of Italian racing and motorcycle racing here in the UK. If Carl Fogarty went down, or everyone then went for Pier Francesco Chili, because he was just like the most handsome guy out there, and the women, wanted to bed him, and the guys wanted to beat him. And I loved Frankie. Still do to this day. Had great times with him. It was like a 4-day school. You went down there. We were there for the whole 4 days. We stayed in the hotel of the evenings. The people ate with the guest riders in the evenings, and sat with them and talked and got drunk at the side of the pool, and they were fun days. But the thing for me that I really got out of that the most was that wonderful feeling of watching somebody just blossom. When you gave them the technique, when you helped them understand what was going on, to see them come out of that shell. And there was one particular guy came to the event on a CBR 600 mint condition bike, barely a fly on it. And every evening he would get the bucket and sponge out, and he would wash that bike down. I mean, we were in the south of France. There were a lot of insects around there. He'd wash that bike down till it was immaculate, and then he'd go out there and do it again the next day. But he was a natural. You just had to point him in the right direction, give him the confidence, and he was clearly a natural. Well, many years later, he rang me up and he said, "Hey, listen, I'm doing my first race in England." He said, "And I just wondered if you'd like to come along and say hi."
Nice.
And I said, yeah, I'd love to. Anyway, he went out and won the race. And it was his first ever race, not just an appearance in England. And he came barreling down pit lane, and he threw the bike up against the garage wall, ran over to his girlfriend and hugged her. And because he hadn't taken too much care about parking the motorcycle, it sort of slid down the wall onto the floor. And when you contrast those two characters, the one I met in the south of France with the polished bike, and the one now that was prepared to let it hit the floor, I realized he'd made a transition. And the transition was from look how fast my bike is to look how fast I am.
Yeah, the rider, not the bike. So
the rider, not the bike. And
makes sense, right?
One of the things that, I've learned in my career at British Superbikes is, there is no one individual. There is no great rider. There is no great bike. There is no great team. It's a combination of all of those three things that come together to bring the greatness.
Yeah, for sure.
That's it.
So how did the Triumph picture come in?
Yes, I remember. So I phoned up a guy because I'd been working with the News of the World, and I used to pick up the motorcycles from the manufacturers, drop them to the newspaper for them to do the road tests on.
Nice. That's a good job.
And I started to get to know the manufacturers, and in particular, I got to know Triumph quite well, and a guy who I still talk to this day called Bruno Tagliaferri, who was there right at the beginning of Triumph's inception when John Bloor bought the brand and started building a business. And he offered me some real cheap bikes for my instructors at the racing school, and that's where the journey with Triumph started, and he's there to the day.
Very cool. So let's talk about Triumph. You don't always experience Triumph with Triumph, so let's talk about setbacks. Were there any moments in your career where things went sideways, financially, technically, or emotionally, and how did you overcome those moments, those trials?
How long have you got?
Continue on, man. There is no time clock here.
I mean, I had a great relationship with Triumph. One of the issues for me, I think, is that I've been with them for so long. Many of the people that I knew at the beginning are no longer there now. They've retired.
Right.
They've moved on. There's new slick management come in, and the whole thing's got a bit corporate, and it lost that thing that it had in the beginning. It's a business now. I know it was a business then, but it didn't feel that way. It felt like you were in a club, a very special club. Now that's all changed, and I got on with them great. I mean, when I finished the European Superbike school, I got shuffled out to the south of France, and the reason I was there was because the people who then owned Brands Hatch was a company called the Flamini Group. They used to own World Superbikes at some point. And I'd come along and I'd booked all these dates in the UK circuits, which were owned by Brands Hatch Group, the Flamini boys, Flying Flaminis, I think we used to call them. About 2 weeks before I was due to launch it, I got a phone call from the circuit manager I booked it with, and he said, "Listen, I'm really sorry, but you can't have any of your dates."
What?
And I said, "Well, what the hell's going on here?" And he wouldn't talk about it. Anyway, like basically, I found out they were going to start a Carl Fogarty race school, and they didn't want me starting one with Pier Francesco Chili, because that was going to be a real, because those two were arch rivals out on the track, Chili and Fogarty.
Gotcha.
And the difference was when you went to their school, you got a video of Fogarty. When you came to my school, you got to sniff his leathers. So it was it was a different thing. They saw me as a threat, so they took my opportunity to work in the UK away, and I wasn't going to be beaten by that. So I just packed up my bags, turned a trip to the south of France into a tour for everybody that wanted to go.
Cool.
Ran a truck down for those that wanted to fly, and we went and had 4 days, great fun in the sun with a swimming pool, something we could never have really done in the UK anyway.
Right.
So that was the beginning. That was kind of right at the beginning. And then when I finished that, Bruno asked me if they were just launching the 675. This was back like 2005. I think they launched it in 2006. And he said to me, "Hey, listen, how'd you fancy doing a one-make championship on the Triumph?" And I said, "Well, does a bear shit in the woods?" Polar bears don't, I guess, is the answer. And I said, yeah, I'm up for that. So I took a year to kind of piece it together. And the great thing is I had a lot of reference points. Over then we had the R6 Cup, which was run by Rob McElnay. So I could see what was going on in there. I could see what was going on in the BSB paddock. And I just sort of looked at it and go, okay, so what can I produce here that's it's gonna be better, essentially.
Yeah.
And so I introduced a thing called the Triumph Triple Challenge, which was a single make series I ran on behalf of the manufacturer at British Superbikes. And that was exactly what's written on the tin. It was a proving ground. And some of the riders that come out of that are still out there to this day. But once again, it allowed me to be creative. So we tapped back into that source again of what do I think's going to sell? And one of the problems that I've always been accused of is that I give too much value, because I don't like people's objections. So if I can do everything I can do so there are no objections, then that's going to be an easy ride.
Yeah.
Which is not the right way to approach a business, but there you go. That's who I am.
Could be.
Yeah, it should be. You're right. It should be. But, it's all about the buck.
Right.
For me, it's never been about the buck. It's been about the man out there in the saddle, because he's the one doing the entertaining.
Right.
And there's very few entertainers in this world that pay to entertain.
Right.
And if there was one thing in my dying breath I'd like to get rid of, it would be that. But, it's not. That isn't going to happen. So, I ran that series for a whole number of years. It was very successful. It worked well. The interesting thing was, how people always want to have a bitch and a moan about something, no matter what it is.
No.
And there was plenty of that. Plenty of that. But many, many years later, those same people came back to me and said, you know what? Now it's not there. I just realized how good it actually was.
Yeah.
It's an old adage.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's extremely true.
Yeah.
And so when that was finished, kind of wasn't getting that buzz anymore. That buzz about watching people grow, watching people flower, watching people gain confidence in themselves and in their skill sets. So I went crazy. I think a screw must have come loose somewhere upstairs, and I woke up one day and I went, I'm going to build a Moto 2 bike. Why? Because I can. Yeah, but why? I don't know why. Just because I can.
Yes.
I worked with some other guys, and we designed our own chassis, swing arm, yokes, everything. The only thing we donated was like the norms, the forks, the engine and the exhaust systems. Everything else we manufactured right down to the bodywork.
What'd you use for an engine?
A Triumph 675.
675. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Kind of stick it to them a little bit, or what?
Well, it was
Make it bigger and better.
No, it was at that time, because my relationship was still cool with them, that it was about availability. If I proved the point, could I get more engines? And the answer would be, yes, I can.
Gotcha.
So I went to the director of British Superbikes back then, still is, Stuart Higgs. I said to him, hey, listen, I've got this crazy idea. Let's do a Moto 2 championship at British Superbikes. And he said, you're insane. No one's going to be able to afford that. I said, no, it's going to be okay. It's like Formula One. Just as soon as you mention Formula One, they just put 2 more noughts on the end of the price. Yep. I said, I'm figuring MotoGP is probably the same. I can do this for like $40,000.
Man.
And back then, you were paying that for a good super sport bike anyway.
Yeah.
You're right. Certainly $30,000. You certainly weren't getting prototype chassis and whatnot. So I went off and did it. And I came back 2 years later with this bike and said, there you go. And he went, yeah, nice.
Wow.
I said, what do you mean? Yeah, nice. And he said, well, it's nice. It's a nice looking bike. I said, yeah, that isn't really what I want to hear. What I want to hear is when you're going to let me out there amongst all the big boys to see what my bike can do. That didn't happen. And I shoved the bike up on my mezzanine floor in my unit, and I left it there for about 6 months. And then all of a sudden, I got a whisper out of Australia from a journalist friend of mine that Triumph had done a deal with MotoGP for 2019 to supply the engines. And I said to Stuart, you know what? 600s are going. They're on their way out. this could be our opportunity to bring a Moto2 championship to British Superbikes. Why do you want to do that? Because I want to see another British rider winning a MotoGP World Championship. And if we can train these guys on geometry from an early, or at least give them an opportunity to understand it before they ever got an opportunity to walk into that paddock, then, you know, if they can't overcome the language barrier, at least they know what they're talking about with the bike. Because once you start throwing in this stuff, most people just, they glaze over. You know, what the hell are you talking about? So he liked it. And eventually he rang me up one day and he said, "You still got that bike?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Bring it down. We'll let you race it in the super sport class.
Yes.
No points, no prizes, evaluation only."
Cried.
So we turned up at Donington Park at the first round, went out for qualifying and put it on pole.
Man, sweet.
And we'd done 1 day's testing on
Wow.
at British Superbikes.
Wow. That's crazy.
It was crazy. It was. I remember the moment really well because Alistair Seeley was the rider, and it was coming at Donington Park. As you look down pit lane, you can see the clock, and it's counting down all the time. Them seconds are going, and we were getting right up toward the last lap, and one of these riders came in, changed over to a set of wets, full wets, and went out on brand new wets, and we were still on the old stuff that we'd been running like the 19-20 laps on, and we were sitting in first position, and all I could do for not peeing myself with excitement was just sit there and go, surely I'm not going to be this lucky. Surely the dream is not going to be everything that we, you know, that silver dream racer moment that we'd all like to have.
Right.
And sure enough, this guy went out and he went faster. And it was like, oh man, we were so close. And I looked up at the clock, and the clock had counted to 0 and the checkered flag was out. But what I didn't realize, my rider had just crossed the line, the checkered flag line, with about a second and a half.
Wow.
Before they called it.
Jeez.
And he just turned up the wick. And when he came across the line, we were all packing up our gear and we were walking away from pit lane.
Wow.
And we were going, hey, do you know, the dream was so close, so close. And then all of a sudden we heard Fred Clark, the commentator, go, "Then Seeley takes pole position." And it was like, we all just stopped right where we were standing. Nobody smiled. Nobody laughed. We all just looked at one another and went, did that just happen?
Surreal.
And it did. And I think none of us really got our head around it till we started sinking a few beers and some tequilas that night. And then all of a sudden, you know, the excitement came out. But at the time, it was just like, I can't believe that just happened. That's a dream. That's a movie right there.
That's an amazing story.
And so, you know, things went well. We got the opportunity to go out there and race it. It was a very controlled environment. You know, the politics of racing are such that the general public didn't understand what we were doing. In fact, the paddock didn't understand what we were doing. You know, we'd get up on the podium, win a race, and the general public would be standing there throwing empty Coke cans and coffee cups at us and saying, "Get out of here, you're ruining this sport."
Wow.
You know, and stuff like that.
Right.
Which was
Tom, can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah, sure.
Before you started Tony Scott Motorsports in 21, between what you just talked about of you guys taking the pole and the beginning of Tony Scott Motorsports in 21, what transpired? Why did you transition from what you just had major success from and then went on your own?
Well, I would. It was actually it leads up into that, because at the end of that season, Stuart Higgs decided that a Moto2 championship was the way forward, despite some objections we'd had from higher up. He sent me off to Triumph to do a deal to get some engines. And, you know, I got a contract through and, you know, we kind of agreed terms, but I was dealing with Triumph UK. And when this whole proposition went up to board level, the soundbite from the board level was very, very different. Now, I don't know precisely what went on because they've never told me. But you know how things kind of come out the woodwork over the years and you hear stuff and you think, yeah, that sounds feasible. And what sounded feasible was this thing that the Dorna deal had been done for MotoGP. And part of that deal for the first 3 years was that they weren't allowed to supply those engines for any other race series. But of course, the managing director of Triumph UK didn't know that. He wasn't at board level. So, of course, he's took the deal from me, rushed it upstairs, and upstairs have gone, no, you know, we can't do that. And so we just ended up with it really falling on its ass.
Wow.
That's wild.
That's crazy. So that's what led to the birth of Tony Scott Motorsport?
Yeah, it did. You know, I've done Triumphs, is what I know. I'm too old now to change track. I might as well stick with what I understand.
Right. No.
But I was mighty pissed at Triumph. I mean, mighty. And the thing that pissed me about it was that they didn't have the common decency to sit down and tell me what the problem
Explain
was.
it. Yeah. Right.
They just they bullshitted their way out.
Yeah, that sucked.
And at that particular time, I was still Triumph's race parts distributor and technical partner. And they got rid of me from both of those positions. It was like,
that sucks.
You're potentially going to upset a deal we've got with Dorna. You're just a minnow, so get the fuck out of here.
Wow.
And I've never forgiven them for the way that they did that. I would have understood if they'd explained the situation to me. In actual fact, we could have probably worked around it. We could have probably used the old 675 engine, or maybe I'd had an opportunity to go and do a deal with another manufacturer and build a new chassis, whatever it might be. But, you know, they in my view, they bullshitted their way through that one instead of just telling me the truth. And for that, no respect. And once you don't give me respect, then
it's hard to be faithful to somebody who's not faithful to you. So I get it, man.
Yeah, exactly. That was it. I'd given them 18 years of my life with Triumph. I was like a stick of rock, Blackpool rock, that you cut me open all the way through, you would see the word Triumph.
Yeah.
And in my view, I'd never done anything bad by them.
Yeah.
But when they did that to me, I gave them a little bit of a rub on social media, and I think that pissed them off, quite frankly. But the damage was done.
Yeah. So take us into 2021. What was that moment?
Hey guys, the show will be back in 1 minute right after a word from our sponsor.
Hey, One Gang, tired of feeling like your butt's taking more of a beating than your bike on those long rides? Introducing Butt Buffer, the ultimate solution to saddle soreness. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. These cushions are made from medical-grade viscoelastic polymer, scientifically crafted to eliminate pressure points and keep your circulation flowing. No more numb nuts or numb butts. And here's the best part. Butt Buffer cushions are made right here in the US for the last 30 years. From Harleys to Hondas, we've got a cushion to fit your ride perfectly. Plus, with styles ranging from sleek pebble polymer to luxurious sheepskin, there's a Butt Buffer for every rider's style. Get your Butt Buffer today at buttbuffer.com. That's buttbuffer.com. Your butt will thank you, and you'll ride longer and happier. We've got your butt covered.
Like for you to kind of now transition from their name now officially into Tony Scott Motorsport. So kind of take us into that transition, why you decided to go down that road, and was it kind of a now or never moment for you to say, hey, you know what? If you did this to me, I'm going to show you guys.
Do you know what? That never really crossed my mind.
Good.
It wasn't about showing anybody anything. Well, that's a lie, actually. It was.
Showing yourself.
You know, well, what
That's
I've done, yeah, do you know what, Ben, you're not far off the mark there. You really, because what a lot of people, well, nobody really realizes, other than those that are very close to me, is that what Triumph did to me sent me into a spin of depression.
Yeah.
Because I didn't understand what I'd done wrong. I thought I was doing a good thing. I was doing a good thing for the sport. I was doing a good thing for their brand.
Right.
And to be treated that way sent me into a spin. I lost it for a while, no question about
Understandably
it.
so.
I was still racing the prototypes in the GP2 class, the Moto2 that I'd done right up until I think it was the end of 2020. And all of a sudden, BSB changed the rules and said, hey, listen, if you ride a triple in this series, you're going to have 5 kilos more weight and 500 less RPM. And I was like, yeah, hang on a minute. There's a problem there. What's the problem? Well, I'm the only triple in the series.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
that's
they
unfortunate,
were
isn't it?
handicapping you right from the beginning then.
Well, they handicapped me later on, and again, I don't really understand. I don't understand why. The rumor that I heard, and it is only a rumor, so let's get that word allegedly in there at some point. Triumph were coming to British Superbikes with the new 765 engine, the new Street Triple that's out there. And they were coming with a team that was destined for world championships, world Superbikes, but they wanted to do a year finding their feet at BSB before they went and made an appearance at the world stage. And I have a sneaking suspicion they didn't want me out there on the old engine kicking their ass.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
That would
You know, I mean, I don't know, but that's my best
That
guess.
makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And I, you know, it was at that point I realized the politics of racing, the bullshit that's involved, the money that's involved. I've always looked at my sport right from the grassroots. A warm saddle. That's it. That's home for me. And once I started seeing all of this stuff emerging, where, you know, I was being told where I had to finish in races to keep the peace. Where I was, where the crowds were getting upset, where the paddock was kind of frowning upon what I was doing. And then all of a sudden, I found out racing wasn't racing. Racing was a show. It was a game. And I was in the middle of it, and I was pissing too many people off by racing.
Right.
And so, you know, I looked at the whole industry and I went, have you looked up the definition of racing in a dictionary? Because I have, and what you're doing here is not racing. So do you know what? Thank you very much. I'm out of here. I walked out the paddock. I never went back. And I sat down and I said, right, I built Moto2 bikes. People in the general public are not going to be able to afford them. What can I do? So I redesigned the whole thing, put them on a production chassis, and Moto Evo was born, and Tony Scott Motorsport was born.
Man,
Nice.
that's an awesome origin story. So let's go into Moto Evo. It's a name we hear more and more in the track day and performance circles. Can you break down what inspired Moto Evo, the concept, and how it differs from traditional chassis setups?
Yeah, when we were doing the prototype thing, one of my riders, Charlie Nesbitt, threw it down the road at Donington Park down Craner Curves, and the bill came to about 16,000 to repair it.
Gosh.
Wow.
And so on that note alone, I had to agree with Stuart Higgs that GP2, whilst it was great, was too expensive,
Right.
especially if you crashed.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, well, I'm going to go away, get a production chassis, redesign all of my geometry parts that helped make that Moto2 bike as quick as it was. because I knew it wasn't a weight thing, because the swing arm and the chassis on the GP2 bike weighs exactly the same as what the production chassis and swing arm does. So I redesigned all the components, put them onto a production chassis. Now, I didn't reinvent the wheel. People have done geometry long before I came along. But what I didn't see was anybody putting it together as one complete package like that. Some bikes came with swing arm inserts, some bikes came with linear linkages, some bikes came with, none of them came with all of it.
Yeah.
And so I put this motorcycle together, went out there, tested it. 765, 142 brake horsepower at the rear wheel, and handling so sublime, you just pee yourself with excitement. It's just gorgeous to ride.
Nice.
I watched it defeat British Superbike riders on 1,000cc motorcycles. That's how good it is.
Yeah.
And so I just decided that as I eat myself into retirement, this is my last gift to the world of racing. It has to be a gift because they were never going to buy it off of me. And if you look around now, you can see Moto Evo as a concept, but they call it Supersport Next Generation. Don't care what they say. It's Moto Evo is what it is.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now at British Supersport, Moto America in your Supersport class over there, and World Supersport. So they've all grasped the concept of full geometry bikes in middleweight classes, and that is Moto Evo.
Amazing.
That kind of hits something I wanted to ask you too, because you've taken kind of a very rider-focused approach, tweaking bikes alongside the people kind of who race them. How has that shaped your engineering style and product development, doing it that way?
It's been an uphill journey, because let's be honest about it, most people don't get their head round suspension, let alone start talking to them about all that other stuff. They just glaze over. You can see it. But they're not going to have a choice, because Moto Evo is going to roll out to every national championship in the world. Now it's at those 3 major clubs. It'll then roll down to club level championship, and out of club level championship, it'll roll out to track days.
Right.
And I'm aiming my business very much at the track day fraternity, because in reality, racers have never got any money, but the track day boys have. So they have got both the money, which is not expensive, actually. It really isn't. I mean, you can fully geometry a bike for about $1,700.
Wow.
It's not
Really?
Yeah, it's not an expensive thing to do. But the thing is it's going on a journey. And that journey is about how you train your brain to think about things in a different way. A brief explanation of that would be, hey, we want to turn the motorbike faster, so we're going to pull the forks up through the yokes. That's great. That's what we've always done on a production-based motorcycle. But what I'm trying to get people to do is go, okay, so you've done that. What else have you done when you did that? Have you now compensated your suspension for the fact you've changed the weight bias of the bike?
Right.
Have you compensated at the rear of the motorcycle? Because you're going to lose traction now. You've moved the weight forward. You won't have the traction that you had. Do you understand that you've lost some ground clearance? Do you understand that you're throwing all that weight on the front and you've moved the center of gravity? It's all of those things. And so when I first looked at it, it kind of blew. Well, I've been really lucky. I've had 8 years of studying it while off of my bike that I built.
Yeah.
Went out there and did my thing with it. And so, some of the best riders taught me what the best configuration is. And the reason I've stuck with the Triumph brand is because I know the numbers. I know exactly what works and what doesn't. So, my last gift to the world of racing before I hang up my hat, which isn't too long now, is come on the journey with me and I'll show you. I will open your eyes to another world that you've never seen before. I'll open you up to confidence levels that you've never experienced before. And I'm going to open your mind up to thinking in a different way about how you go racing on a motorcycle. I hope, do you know what? I hope I didn't deviate too much from the path.
No,
of your
no, no.
question,
That's
Sergey.
great, man. Hey, listen.
Got me ready to run through a wall. Tony Willy Wonka Scott.
Completely, yeah. It was all the drugs in my youth. It's done a bit of a run on me, but I'm cool with all that. I've had a lot of fun along the way.
It's working out well for you.
So,
Tony, you offer everything from engine tuning to full-blown super sport builds. What's been your most challenging build and the build that you're most proud of to date?
The build I'm most proud of is that Moto 2 bike that we took to British Championships. That there's no question about that. That was the movie moment. That was the pinnacle of everything for me. But funny enough, we were talking about this yesterday. So I'm building a full-blown Evo in the unit at the moment for a guy in Ireland, and it's just you know, like you get that feeling when you come home and the wife or whatever's put some clean bed sheets on and you get in and they're all crispy and kind of nice. That's what a new bike build feels like.
Great metaphor.
It's that crispy white sheet feeling. And you know, I take on my bikes, I take the standard 675 chassis because I you know, one of the bones of contention for me has always been, you know, they're racing these Triumph 765s around tracks at world level and God knows where else. That bike doesn't exist. I mean, when I always understood there was an homologation rule, i.e. the silhouette of the bodywork needs to look as per the original manufacturing. That's a rule of racing. Well, you show me what Triumph out there looks like a street triple.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
It doesn't, right.
Funny how the rules can get bent when it suits everybody, isn't it?
Right.
It's a weird scenario. So, do you know, I lost my train of thread there. Where was I going with that?
Most challenging build.
Like
crispy sheet feeling with the new bike. The most build.
So
and then also the challenging part too.
Yeah. So the reason I mentioned that was because I use a 675 chassis. I don't use a 765 chassis. One of the things I want to try and get across to people is when you go out and buying a motorcycle, the first thing you've got to figure out in your head is what was it designed to do? And a 765 Street Triple is designed as a sports tourer. It does not know whether it's got two 120-pound riders on it or two 200-pound riders on it. So when you buy a motorcycle like that, the first thing that you really need to remember is that fact. It's not a bike for you. It's a bike for someone. And we don't know who that someone is.
Interesting.
So one of the first things I do is start to fit the bike to the rider. As I say, mainly track day guys, but there are some racers. And in reality, the same rules apply. And so I take a 675 chassis and I take it down my powder coaters and I go, put that in a beautiful silver for me, please. Get rid of that grey black. I want a beautiful silver. And that starts as my Moto Evo chassis. And when I put that on the bench, I swear a little bit of pee comes out because I just get excited about what's about to take place in front of me. And it's just the greatest feeling. It's just that starting with those fresh, clean sheets and building something that is as near as I can get it, perfect.
Right.
And once you bolt all that thing together, and you know, it goes up in various stages. People get frightened of motorcycles like this, but you should never be. You know, the beautiful thing about Moto Evo is it's modular. You can start with the chassis and a basic engine, and everything else can be what you've already got. And as you go along, you can add the bits. Hey, let's change the bolts to titanium. Hey, let's change the wheels. Hey, let's change the swing arm. Let's change the electronics. Let's move it up. Let's keep moving it on. As both your talent and your wallet warrant the expenditure.
Of course.
For many guys out there, and I get it, 100% I get it. It ain't about how talented they are. It's about how cool they look. And I go all the way back to when I was a kid at school and I watched that boy on the Fantic. There's nothing wrong with that. You want to buy a Moto Evo because you think you look the Charlie Big Potato? Buy it. It's not a problem. Do what makes you happy. But if you want to go on a journey, if you want to have your eyes opened to a new world that's unquestionably coming our way in racing, then I'll take you on that journey, because I'm one of the few people that truly understands it, because I built the goddamn thing.
Yep. You've been there and built it. So
Been there,
absolutely.
seen it, done it.
Yep. Hey, quick question on this. You've been very active online, especially with LinkedIn. 'Cause that's how you and I connected. But especially talking about the realities of performance engineering. What made you decide to open up publicly, and what kind of response have you gotten from the motorcycle community doing this?
The levels of interest vary, obviously. I have got an elite group of customers that have unquestionably gone on the journey.
Right.
And it's been really interesting to see them selling their Ducati V4Rs or their Ducati Superleggeras and saying, do you know what? I like the Triumph. I like the Moto Evo. It gives me something these other motorcycles, can't seem to do. But from I never got in this game for money. I got in this game to make a difference. And the only way you're going to make a difference is tell the world about it. And I won't give away my technical drawings on what I did.
Right.
But I will give you the benefit of my 30 odd years of experience, whether it be just saying to you, do you know, my friend, don't just put the Moto Evo bodywork on, make it look like a Moto 2, go ride your bike and enjoy it, because quite frankly, that thing's always going to be faster than you are. To the other guy that comes to me with something going on with the motorcycle, which I can then, one of the beauties about geometry, when we talked very briefly earlier about, pulling the forks through and all the various changes that it makes, when you put an adjustable set of yokes on a motorcycle, all you do is move two spacers, one in the bottom, one in the top, and that changes the speed at which the bike turns into the corner. It's a surgical way of dealing with a problem, rather than what we've all been used to since time began, of having a production-based motorcycle that is always a compromise.
Right.
What Moto Evo does is it takes away the compromise and surgically introduces a solution to the problem.
So cool. That's
That's the bit I love about it. I mean, till I got involved with this stuff, I didn't understand what swing arm angles did.
right.
And we, one of the things that brought that on board was when we were racing at BSB, they dumped the 180 tires and they went to 190s. Now, as soon as you go onto a bigger tire, you produce a bigger contact patch. And what that contact patch was doing was offering so much grip with the linear linkages, because the suspension could work as it wanted to,
Right.
that it was pushing the front. So you were it was giving you so much grip at the back, it pushed the front. The front couldn't cope with it. So you'd run wide on exits of the corners because the tire was giving so much grip. So all we did was work it out on the chassis program. We chucked some swing arm inserts in there, whether it be a -1 or a +1, whatever it was. And what we actually did was change the swing arm angle to take away some of the grip, so that we were back to what it felt like on a 180 tire, although we had a bigger contact patch of a 190 tire.
Yeah.
And and these were the things that just got me so excited, because it was like, can you do that? I didn't even know you could do that. And that's been the journey. That has literally been the journey from beginning to end for me. It's just been one state of, wow, I didn't know you could do that, to another one, wow, I didn't know you could do that.
Right. Always learning,
but not necessarily being taught, finding it out the hard way.
right.
But with just the best team in the world around me. I mean, I think we certainly won 2 British championships, and we helped win a third.
Man.
You know, like I said right at the beginning, isn't about one individual, one bike, or just a team. It's that combo together. And I had the best bunch of guys in the world working with me. And the thing that really changed and really struck me, actually, was when the big sponsorship came. When we were on the TV winning races and the sponsors wanted to climb on board, and all of a sudden the big budgets were thrown at us, all that disappeared. All that passion disappeared. The team didn't enjoy it anymore, because they didn't come there for money. They all had day jobs. They were earning their money doing whatever they were in their day job. They came there for the crack, for the humor, for the piss taking. For the fun, for the moment of it all. And when the big money came in, it killed all that. And so really, at the end of 2020, my decision about walking away from the paddock wasn't just about the politics of it, but it was also about we weren't enjoying it like we used to.
Yeah, a lot of people said, you know, we've had many guests, from race team owners to parts companies owners to motorcycle shop owners, and everybody has said the same thing in regards to, like, once that raw stage, right? That raw stage before you make that hit album of the music is so great, right? Because everybody is kind of on the same page. And now all of a sudden there's more pressure now, and there's outside voices. It's no longer kept in room, because the money now is trying to dictate the way things need to be done, because they're paying the money.
Exactly.
So, and that's, everybody has said the same thing. Their favorite part of their startups has always been in that infancy stage of growth. And then once they made it big, it kind of became more of a job than it did of a passion.
You know, I've always said to people, and I said it very recently to a guy who just bought a motorcycle business, and you know, I said, "Why did you do that?" And he went, "Oh, you know, I just love motorcycles, and I got about 21 of them, and you know, very excited." And I said to him, "Listen, my friend, do yourself a favor. Don't ever turn your hobby into your job, because it's no longer a hobby."
That's right.
And that is exactly what you just said, Sergio. And what all these are, it's actually really good to hear that, because I wondered if I was alone in the world.
No.
But no.
Yeah.
No,
it's a very, very similar across the board. Of course, money's always good, because now you're getting the recognition, the finances are taken care of, so that stress of the financial stress is gone. But then all of a sudden now the money's making the final decisions on the final products and things of that nature for you, where it was always your decision to make them. So now it's that scale, you know, the justice scale of.
Yeah, I think if I had my time again, you know, the biggest expenses were, of course, paying your rider. I wasn't going to have, you know, I had a good rider on the bike. He deserved to be paid. And I think all riders deserve to be paid. I get shocked that they all go out there and they do it for nothing. Well, not for nothing. They take it out of their own pockets. But yeah, I had a good rider on there. Yeah, sure. Cover the boys' expenses in the team, few beers in the evening, something to eat, and a little bit of lunch or whatever. And yeah, when we had a biggie, you know, if there was a big crash in there, yeah, we might need a little bit of help here and there. But in truth, if I lived through that whole journey again and someone was waving a $300,000 check at me going, "Hey, we'd like our name all across that bike," I'd say, "Do you know, give me 20 and shut the fuck up."
That's fun. Yeah, I get it.
Tony, your journey, man, it's interesting how what you found fulfilling early on, that sheet kind of, or that rug felt like it was pulled out from under you. And then your reason why moving forward is just because I can. And that small decision blossomed into what I can't imagine wouldn't be more fulfilling than anything you've ever done. Getting to hang your hat on your accolades and accomplishments now and seeing the success that you've seen, it's amazing how it goes back to that everything happens for a reason. The puzzle pieces in your journey fit together in such a fascinating way. And I wanted to ask you, there are a lot of aspiring racers and builders that are tuned in to One Gang. What are some of the lessons and or mistakes that you made earlier on that you wish an older Tony was around to give you a heads up on?
The thing that worries me, and I'm not anti-sales. We're a business. We have to sell things to survive. But I kind of say to people go racing on their ego.
Yeah.
Too often when they begin, it's about, hey, I need this and I need that, and I've got to have that. I've got to have Olins on the bike, and I need all the bits and pieces because I'm going to go faster. Well, the answer is you're not. You're not going to go faster. In fact, you probably go slower. Because if you're not already up to speed, that top level suspension that you bought just isn't going to work for you. It's going to feel like you're riding around on two pieces of wood, because you're not yet fast enough to understand it. So I would say to anybody, before you invest money in your motorcycle, do the basics, put the footrests on, put the clip-ons on, put the aftermarket bodywork on, put some decent rubber on it. Maybe change the chain, to something a little bit lighter, and then stop and go out and invest in yourself.
Great.
Go ride that bike, because that bike, in most cases, is faster than you are. And you've probably got 3 or 4 seconds in that motorcycle before she starts to misbehave or not do quite what you're asking her to do. And it might be that you'll never reach that stage. You'll never get that bike as it is misbehaving. But once you get it doing something, then the problem presents itself to you. And now you have something to solve. And you can work on that particular aspect of it, whatever it might be. So when I say invest into yourself, wherever you go, there's going to be guys quicker than you. Goes all the way up the ladder, right to the very top. There's no, the wild days of the West, there was always some around a corner that could pull a gun faster than you could. So go learn from these people. Hey, they love to have someone come say, hey, you look really quick on that motorcycle.
There you
go. A
go.
little tow round and, and give me a hand. Give their ego a little massage, and they'll help you massage yours. But more importantly, they'll give you free experience, and that's pretty hard to come by on any day of the week. Start from the bottom, right at the very bottom, and work your way up, step by step by step by step. And if you ever get to the point of Evo, there's another staircase in front of you. Do it step by step by step by step. And you will find your way. Randy Mamola said something to me a long time ago, and I've never forgotten it. He said, I was racing at Silverstone, and I was like way down. I was like 7 seconds a lap down on the leader. I was going to go home. I was going to pack everything up and go home because I was plain frankly embarrassed. And when I pulled in pit lane, there was an old boy stood there in the garage. I was putting my tyre warmers on. I was cussing and moaning and, oh, fuck it, I'm going home. And I look like an idiot and da-da-da-da-da. And he walked up to me. He said, what's the matter, son? And I was 30 then, so you can imagine how old he was to call me son. And I explained it. I said, I'm 7 seconds a lap down. I'm embarrassing myself, blah, 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 blah. And he said, you know what? He said, there are 14 corners on this circuit. He said, that's half a second a corner. He said, and if you break it down, that's 1/4 of a second in and 1/4 of a second out. We're talking a finger click like that. Once you break it down into the smaller numbers,
crystallized.
things become more crystallized. And most importantly, when you go racing and they give you sector timesheets, you can see where you're being a numpty. And what we all have a tendency to do is we go, hey, I need to go faster, and your friends are geeing you on or whatever it might be, or you might be in a race and you want to get the trophy. And we go, do you know, I'm just going to push that little bit harder. And the next minute you're on your ass on the floor in the gravel, you know, going, ooh, and facing a big bill. And the reason that happened was because you tried to go faster on the corners that you like. Well, the reality of it is you're probably already going as fast as you can on the corners that you like. What you're not doing is facing up to the fact of the corners that you don't like. They're the ones that you focus on because that's where your time is. And then the rest of it comes in throttles. It's just, and always remember one other thing, a myth that I'd really like to dispel. I hear people talking about horsepower all the time. Yeah, I've got this much horsepower or this much horsepower, whatever. It's a bullshit number, a complete bullshit number. It's some guy on a dyno charging you $300, pumping some more air into the rear tire to make it harder, to make your numbers look bigger, so that you go home, go down the pub and go, hey, I got 206 horsepower.
Yep.
Okay? When you get out on a racetrack and you look at the real-time data, you'll find that you're on full throttle at 206 horsepower for about 5% of the lap.
Right.
What are you wasting your money on? Why are you trying to catch matey boy's horsepower in front of you? It's irrelevant. Totally irrelevant. What's relevant is how quick can you get that bike round the corner with the horsepower that you've got. And to put that into perspective for you, when we were racing at BSB with our Moto 2 bike, we were up against bikes that were claiming 140 and 145 horsepower, and we were on a pretty much stock engine, and we still whooped their ass.
That's crazy.
And on one particular occasion, we whooped their ass by a full 29.97 seconds in front of them over a 12-lap race.
That's crazy.
You know, when I started this journey, I knew I could change the way that we went racing. I could change, I say I could change the world. That's probably
Definitely
a little
the
bit,
racing world. You have.
but certainly the racing world. And as tough as things have been and as difficult as I feel sometimes I've been treated, to come out of that low time that I had when I didn't understand what I'd done wrong. Truth was, I hadn't done anything wrong, because now they're all doing it. It was just my timing was out, but nobody had the decency to tell me what that was. They let me go through that real rough stuff. So I had to sit there and come out the other end of that and say, do you know what? I never came into it for the money. I came in to change the game. Now I have changed the game. And the spin-off for me is I'm making a comfortable living out of it as I approach my retirement. I'd call that successful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. This transition's great into this one. Are there big goals that you're still chasing at this moment in time? Or is it more about refining and evolving what you've already built?
Living past 70 is one of my goals.
You'll do it, man. Shit.
Listen, you ain't been on any trips with me, my friend. You have no idea how much I've abused this body over the years. I tell you what, there is one thing in the back of my mind that I haven't done and I would like to do. A few years back, I got approached by Triumph on behalf of Dyno, who, you know, we all know run MotoGP, asking me if I'd run a championship in America, Asia, and Eastern Europe on my Moto Evo bikes. My first port of call was America. I kind of, now the bag of things happening at MotoGP, I kind of realize why they wanted to go there first. You're the biggest audience. That's why they want you. And they figure if they can get a load of, you know, hairy-ass guys with a Budweiser watching MotoGP, it doesn't really matter. As long as the numbers are going up, they're going to be happy. And that didn't work out. It didn't work out for me for many, many reasons. But the primary reason was I didn't want to not see my son grow up over the next 9 years while I formulated championships 3 years at a time. I came away from that, and I went back to Dyno last November. It was, we had a meeting at the last round in Barcelona, and we talked about Moto Evo, and I said, look, I'll do it, but I want to do it in Europe, and I want to do it in America. And I'm going to say something now which is pretty controversial, but it's something that I genuinely believe. If we want MotoGP riders, send them to Europe.
Absolutely.
America doesn't have the circuits for it. England doesn't have the circuits for it. Europe has the circuits for it.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start a Moto Evo school, which I was going to kind of break down into 2 categories, a starter kind of bike, and then one into the full factory version. So that riders from all over the world, I mean, I looked at the Americans and I said, I thought to myself, the amount of money you guys have to spend traveling from one circuit to another, and the amount of time you spend out of your day job traveling to go racing, you could fly into Europe to do a 2-day weekend and fly back home again, and probably spend less money and certainly less time. And that applies for England as well. And what we should be doing, during the war, one of my favourite sayings, I'm getting to an age where I can get away with that statement now. During the war. We didn't care who we threw at a Spitfire, just so long as they could fly. Right. That's all we wanted. And who was the best squadron out there? A bunch of Polish guys who we didn't even want in the RAF because we thought they were idiots and didn't know how to fly airplanes. They shot down more Germans than the rest of the Royal Air Force put together.
Nice.
And the thing there is that the talent that we're looking for isn't necessarily the boy with the money. He could be that kid sitting down, smoking a cigarette at 12 behind a yard because he's got nowhere else to go. Yeah. So let's do a budget championship. Let's do something that can be afforded by the mum and dads of this world for that kid that's got a dream, but he's never going to fulfill it because it's out of his reach for money. Well, I will put it in your reach for money, for sensible money. But unfortunately, I have to have the powers that be to back me on that, and they ain't there.
Yep. Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Tony, where can people find you? So you've got TonyScottMotorsport.com. Where are you most active as far as socials and everything else goes?
I'm kind of normally behind the bike shed having a cigarette. You can normally pick me up there. Yeah, I mean, the Tony Scott, there's a Facebook page. That's probably the one I'm most active on. I've got an Instagram page, but nobody seems to go there. I don't really understand quite what's happening with that one. If you can go to my website too, there you can find my mobile number. You can talk to me on WhatsApp or. If you don't necessarily, I'm not necessarily looking for you to buy something. I just like you to see the dream, and if you're inspired by anything that we've talked about today, then come along and I'll show you what the journey looks like, and you can make a decision for yourself whether it's something that you want to go on. But I can promise you this: once you're on it, you will never ever look back, because it's a different world and it's an exciting and interesting world. And of course, it will give everybody down the pub so much more to talk about the next time.
Yeah, that's right. That's so awesome. All right, my man, you complete. Hey, listen, before we get to the speed round, anything you want to throw out there that maybe you're working on, or any news that maybe we didn't cover that you wanted to bring up real quick?
Yeah, there is one small thing. I'm starting to push this concept of what we call chassis migration technology. It's a fancy word. I made it up when I'd had a couple of tequilas one evening, but it sounds good. So, what I'm seeing and what we all should be thinking about, the next bike that's going to disappear from the racetrack is the thousands. They're on
Why?
their way.
Why?
Emissions, sales. You know, you got to remember everything that we've talked about, all the troubles and strifes that I've had and we've talked about today come down to one single factor, a buck. It's money. And so if they're not selling the things, they're not going to keep making the things. And if you look around the marketplace now, what you're seeing is sports tourers and adventure bikes being,
Right.
you know, the next big thing. Well, I there's no ways I'm humping a Tiger 800 round a racetrack. I know you do it over there, you boys, with the baggers and everything, but it ain't. I can't see it happening over here, or in Europe, indeed. So, you know, Triumph hinted to me some time back that, you know, within 10 years, there just aren't going to be racing chassis around because that's not what's selling.
Yeah.
So what we need to do as an industry is preempt that and start looking at, okay, how can I take a chassis from a Tiger 800 and turn it into a racing chassis? What does that look like? And that's what I've been doing. And in actual fact, I've been using the ST765 as the project for that, where I'm saying, okay, the swing arm on this is too long. Let's take it out. Let's throw it away. Let's put a 675 swing arm in there, or let's put a BMW 1000 swing arm in there, or let's put an R1 swing arm in there. How can I join those two components together and make it work? And the beauty of that is if we can nail that idea down, you can go down to your local salvage yard and you can buy your own Moto Evo bike out of the scrap heap.
Right.
And put your own thing together, you know?
Yeah.
I know it's not as straightforward. I've got
No, but
facilities
that's okay. That's true. I mean, you know, it's a good way. I mean, most people need to understand how their bike works, how it's built, what it looks like. I mean, one of the things that we've been hearing a lot of having guests on, whether they team owners or whether they're part of the racing engineering team, whatever the case may be, is that today's riders, today's racers, not a lot of them even touch their bike. They just race it. So they don't know it. And they said that that's been kind of a lost art, is that, you know, they just get on it, race it, get off of it, and go do their shit. They don't understand, they don't wrench it, they don't understand how everything works, what to do. So that makes a lot of sense what you're saying. Everybody mentions the same thing.
I think at high level it's a different game, but you know, when you're at club level and you're going out there for fun, if you spanner your own motorcycle from top to bottom, you know, when you're doing up that bolt and it just didn't quite feel right, but you ain't got time to go and do a load of work to put that problem right. So you're going to go out there on the racetrack and something goes wrong with the motorcycle. There's an extreme likelihood you'll just go, do you know what? I know what that is. I know what's happened there. Because I remember when I was building it, I felt this or I did that or whatever it might be. My faux pas, you know, move along.
Right.
It'll save you an awful lot of money in the long run, but more important, it will give you a great education into something that we all love, and that's motorbikes. Understand them. They're your best friend when you're out there. They're going to whiz your ass around a racetrack at an eccentric amount of speed. So get to know your girlfriend real well, because otherwise you might not have so much fun on the ride. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you don't want somebody else touching her. So
you're absolutely. Well, that's the one thing that's great about a motorbike is, you know, she doesn't mind if someone else rides her.
Yeah. That will be part 2 of this show. We'll get into that later. Hey, listen, all right, let's do this. Let's get into the speed round. We got 15 questions, 2 minutes on the clock. No right or wrong answer. Let's just have some fun. Ready?
Okay.
All right. Guilty alcoholic beverage, and if you don't drink, what's your guilty go-to snack?
Oh, Slivovitz.
Okay.
It's a Slovakian drink, a local drink, which comes out at 72% proof, and they give it to you for breakfast to improve your digestive system.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah. I've got. Do you know what? Give me your address, boys. I'll send you over a bottle. That's of course if they'll let it on the aircraft,
right?
It's mate,
72%.
Two hits of that, and I'm a different guy.
All right. This is a good one. I wanted to hear from you. What's the most underrated motorcycle ever made, in your opinion?
My bike.
Your bike. The Evo, of course. Good.
Yeah.
That's a great answer. I wouldn't expect anything else.
Yeah.
One tool
Sorry.
in your that's okay. One tool in your
Sorry.
workshop you can't live without.
Oh, one tool in my workshop that I can't. Well, obviously the bench is the main one, but what other tool? Yeah, I know what it is.
What?
So when you got to get underneath, when you got to get into the engine to undo your throttle bodies, you've got these tiny little bands with like a tiny little 3 millimeter Allen key that goes around the bottom of each injector body. And you have to get right through from one side of the motorcycle to another to be able to undo those things, to take throttle body off. So I've got this big bendy thing. I was never that well endowed by God, so I bought this thing instead. It's massive, and it's just brilliant because you can support it and you can go right the way through from one end of the motorcycle to the other. And
That's
undo
cool.
all
So
those
you
little
created
things.
so you built your own
No,
tool, basically.
No,
it came like
somebody
that.
else- Somebody
Oh,
else
wow.
created that.
Okay.
But it's the one tool that I could not live with in my workshop,
Gotcha.
or live without,
All right.
I should say, in my workshop.
What's the strangest customer request you've ever had?
Jesus Christ. Can I sleep with your girlfriend? I think that was
Really? Damn.
Yeah,
You
no,
got some
I did.
you got some crazy customers, man.
I have got some crazy customers. Funny enough, here's a crazy customer. When we were in Nogaro, down in the south of France with Frankie Keeley, we were at the bar just before we all went in for dinner, and this lady came over to me and she said, "Hey," she said, "what's the chances I could sit next to Frankie Keeley at dinner tonight?" So I said, "Phew." I said, "I don't know." I said, "I think he rotates around the table." She said, No, you don't understand." She said, "I want to sit next to him at the table." And you know what's coming, don't you?
Yeah.
You know what's coming. So it was, and she kind of looked at me and she went, "You make this happen for me and I'll make something happen for
Oh
you."
gosh.
But I was a young, good-looking guy then, so I kind of wasn't really persuaded by that much. You know, it was like, no, I'm going to keep my dignity and his.
Attaboy.
So yeah, good try, young lady,
Played.
but no, thank you.
Well
But
played.
yeah, I
That's
think
so
that was probably one of the weirdest
right.
things that ever got said to me.
That's funny. If you weren't in the motorcycle world, what would you be doing today?
I would be a marine biologist.
Really?
Yeah, I've got to save the world one way or the other, haven't I? So, you know, if I can't do it with motorbikes, I'm going to do it with the oceans and fish. Yeah, marine biologist would have been my thing.
All right, that's cool.
Looking back now, you know, that's what I'd do.
All right, that's good. Favorite sound, a perfectly tuned triple or a screaming inline four at the red line?
Neither. Two-stroke.
All right.
Two-stroke. All right, good. Nice. I like that.
GP 500 two-stroke.
Nice.
As ridden by your countryman Wayne Rainey and people like that. The smell and the sound never left me.
Nothing like it. Nice. One music band you always listen to when it's time to get a deadline done?
Springsteen.
Okay.
I heard he's been rubbing Trump lately. Is that right?
Yeah. He's not a very well liked man in the United States. So talking
What, Trump or
too much shit. Springsteen. It's true.
Bless.
All right, let's track day weapon of choice: modern superbike or one of your own EVOs?
You know, depending on where you're approaching this from. When I used to do track days, I used to ride a 125, even though I was like 12 stone. I don't know what that is in pounds, but you know, it's not light. Let's put it that way. I used to ride a 125. And people used to come up to me and say, "Hey, you're pretty talented on a motorcycle. Why the hell are you riding like a little 125? It was a little 125 Aprilia production-based bike." And I said, "Because it's a win-win bike." And they'd say, "What do you mean by that?" I said, "Well, you know, if I overtake you, I shouldn't be able to. And if I can't overtake you, I shouldn't be able to. So,
So you win either way.
yeah, it's a win-win bike." So, you know,
That's
if I
awesome.
was going back to the track nowadays, I would go on the lightest, within reason, the lightest underpowered bike that I possibly could. And I would just enjoy the corners. The straights are irrelevant and the power is irrelevant. The glory of riding a bike on a racetrack is that incredible feeling of going into a corner, seeing God and still coming out the other side.
That's cool.
Just the best vibe.
Have you ever ridden something that genuinely scared you?
My wife.
That's fun. Hey, do we have to put like parental warnings before we publish this podcast, Ben?
Yeah. Already done.
Just the wife. I'm getting the vibe that we're giving people some guidance. So I might as well throw that one in while we've got an opportunity. No, I've never. I rode a bike that I didn't like and that I actually got off and said, you know what, I can't ride this, and somebody else got on it and rode it pretty well. But no, there's nothing I've ever ridden that I've gone, no, this scares me or but a few I've ridden that I don't like. Yeah, sure. But only because we just didn't get on again. They're like girlfriends sometimes. Some you get on with and some you don't.
That's right. All right. Which is more frustrating, wiring gremlins or dealing with supply delays?
Both.
Yeah, I know.
No, actually, wiring gremlins are the worst because when you're dealing with supplying delays, I have everything pretty much made here in the UK, so I can go up and batter somebody with something. If I'm not getting what I want, but wiring gremlins, they're a real pain in the ass. They are,
Electrical's my weakness.
And mine too, in fairness. I've got somebody who works with me who understands the electrical side of things, but me, I don't get it. People try to say to me, oh yeah, just think of it like water, it flows, and it's water, electricity. No, them two things don't happen for me. So.
That doesn't flow for me.
No, it doesn't work for me.
All right. What's your dream ride destination still left to conquer?
Oh, across the US.
Oh man, you come anytime. That'd be awesome.
Across the US is on my bucket list.
Any specific place you want to go to?
No, because I don't know it well enough. I spent some time in New York. I spent some more time down at Barber in Alabama.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
That was
Barber's beautiful museum.
I've never seen a cotton field. I've never seen. I heard. I've heard them all sing about it in the old days and whatnot, but I've never seen a cotton field. Never. It was like, wow, stop the car. I got to get out and have a look at this. I've never seen this before. So that's the kind of journey that I want to go on, because I think you guys are so lucky. You can go from one end of your country to another and you can experience every weather condition, every culture, everything is there for you. And it's like, that I have to do that before I go. I absolutely have to do that.
The West is beautiful, like the Dakotas, Montana, Wyoming, that area, the upper, oh my God, it's incredible.
That's the road trip that I would like to go. I would like to go on, and I'd like to probably take my daughter with me, because I think it would be a great educational thing for her as she's growing. As she's 14 at the minute. Let's wait till she's 16, and then let's go open her eyes with a road trip across.
That would be awesome. Absolutely.
Yeah, a road trip across. And there's a special guy I want to mention, a power store down in Cincinnati, a guy called Les, who is a Triumph dealer down there. So whatever I'm doing on my road trip, I need to pass through Cincinnati and
Cincinnati, okay,
because he's a very cool guy.
Nice,
awesome. Okay, cool. If you could have dinner with someone dead or alive, who would it be?
Wow, if I could have dinner with somebody dead or alive, who would it be? You know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I can't answer that question.
It's okay.
I've never really given that a great deal of, because this would sort the whole problem out. I'd like to have dinner with God.
All right.
With God. Nice. We've had people who said Jesus on the show, so.
I want to go right to the top. Let's not faff around here. Let's get a chug on. Yeah, I'd like to go right to the top, and I'd like to have dinner with God, because I got this thing in my head. I want to see if he turns up.
Okay, that's good. All right, this is interesting. Ever gotten halfway through a build and thought, "What the hell have I started?"
Oh gosh, yeah. How many times do you want me to mention that? Right, what
Right.
that Moto 2 thing took me 2 years. Yeah, okay, so it was done like weekends and spare time in the evenings and stuff like that. But
Right.
yeah, I'd started the journey, but unfortunately, I'm like one of those little dogs, them little yappy dogs that once I get my teeth into it, it doesn't matter. I'm not stopping. Even if I'm not enjoying the process, I said I will start something. I will finish it.
Okay. All right. Finish this sentence. When I'm on my motorcycle, I'm
Free.
yeah, great. That's a great one. Yep. Besides the One Gang Worldwide podcast, do you listen to any other podcasts out there? Do you listen to any shows as far as social media stuff?
I only learned about podcasts a few years ago. I kind of haven't
Yeah,
even
it's
really
okay.
understood. I have been listening to a few podcasts, but and I say this with the greatest respect to everybody. When it comes to Christmas and people say to you, I bet you guys have this too. How many Christmas presents do you get associated with motorbikes?
Yeah, not many. I'll get a gift certificate.
Oh, really? Every
That's what I
year?
will ask for. I'll say, give me a gift certificate at like a or like eBay or motorsports store or something, That's what the hell am I gonna do with clothes or any of that shit? I don't need any of that.
You can try wearing them. Yeah, but I understand if you get that Christmas jumper, you might not want to go that far. But every year, I open up my Christmas presents and somebody's given me something to do with a motorbike. Might be the history of motorbikes, a book, or
Yeah, I like
something,
that.
or a little poster, or a little trinket, or whatever it might be. And it's kind of like, Jesus, can you give this a little bit more thought? Because every day I talk about motorbikes, and I always remember I was sitting in Ron Haslam's motorhome, and we were at Donington Park for the Grand Prix, and Wayne Gardner, he came knocking at the door looking for Ron, and I said, "Oh, I'll be back here in about 10 minutes." I said, "You want to come in? Wait." Yeah, sure. So he came in. I was with my friend Neil. Neil knew nothing about motorbikes, never ridden one, didn't really care, wasn't bothered, everything else. And those two guys sat down and played a game of cards, and they had a load of fun. And I was watching from the outside, from the side, and thinking to myself, you know what? If that had been me, the first thing I would have done was I would have started talking to him about motorbikes. How many people talk to him about frickin' motorbikes?
Yeah.
Right.
They're human beings. They've got arms and legs, just like the rest of us. They have families and stories to tell, but they don't always have to be about motorbikes.
Motorcycles, yeah.
And one of the things that I've really enjoyed about this podcast is, albeit we've talked about motorbikes a lot, but we've also talked about my journey. And whilst that might have something to do with motorcycles, I feel it's got more to do with me and who I am.
Absolutely.
Rather than the machinery and everything else. And that has been really refreshing for me.
Awesome.
That's our goal.
It's been refreshing for us, Tone.
Yep. Getting people to tell their story, that's our goal. So that's incredible. Flattering that you feel that way. And I hope that wife is listening to this episode so that she can maybe get you something that's marine biology related for Christmas.
She will. Yeah, she'll probably come in with a big haddock or something like that. Go, hey, have some fish. Yeah, I've no doubt she's going to watch this at some point. She just asked me about it this morning, and I said, hey, listen, I've not done anything like this before, so don't ask me what it's all about because I don't really know. But she will no doubt want to watch this. And
well, we greatly appreciate you taking the time, obviously, to come on the show and tell your journey, tell your story. For us, it's awesome. We don't always get to hear what happens on the other side of the pond, right? So it's kind of cool to hear the journeys there. We know a lot of the U.S. history stuff that's taken place, and now to hear it from your angle, it's been phenomenal for us. So, man, extremely appreciated. And if you do come to the States and you come visit us in Florida, you have a motorcycle to ride here, I'll take you on a cool little trip around, man, show you some cool stuff. So you'll always have a bike to ride if you come to our neck of the woods, okay?
I've got my ESTA visa. It's sitting on my laptop
Right.
there, waiting for a trip to the US. So when all the bubbles stop popping, I promise you, I will get
And
over there.
if you do make it to Florida, just we stay in contact. Let us know. Give us a heads up, and we'll plan something cool out. Okay.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thanks.
All right.
Thanks ever so much, guys. Really enjoyed
Thank you for
talking
joining
to
us. Last
All
last
right.
quick point to make is, considering you haven't done something like this before, how cool is it now that your story is documented?
The strangest thing that I think about on that one is probably slightly morbid, but my young son will get to watch this
That's right.
one day when he understands more about his father. Right now,
Yeah.
I'm just here for the entertainment, but
Right.
I hope he gets to see that, you know, his dad did something, and yeah,
That's great.
I hope he follows in my footsteps too, and that he tries to do something for the benefit of everybody else rather than the benefit of himself.
Mm,
Yeah.
man.
I think he will. I think he will. He's got a good role model to look up to.
Yep.
So that's half the battle.
What a cool way to end the show. Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate you. This is awesome.
Thanks,
Cool.
Talon.
Great episode.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Appreciate you.
Take care.
Thank you.